All right, we're waiting to go live. Dang, I gotta turn something off real quick so I can hear. That comes up when you turn it off. All right. So one of the projectors is really loud. We're booting it up, getting ready for class here, but we got a few minutes before we're gonna get started. We'll see if anybody joins us. Hopefully we'll see some people from LinkedIn and YouTube today. I'm not just talking to myself. I do that a lot. I talk to myself a lot. Lots of news going on today, this week. Definitely going to talk about some, I think, some interesting things, at least broach it, and then hopefully see that you all have some questions about it. Daniel, good morning, sir. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hopefully you're doing well. Hopefully your week went excellent. Looking forward to hearing everybody's comments. Wes, good to see you back on a Friday. Awesome. Hope to hear some of your comments or some of your inputs about some of the topics we have today. So get those questions ready. We've got the agenda up right now, and love to see some of your comments and your inputs about it. Well, we will get started in about a minute. Waiting for some people. Yeah, the week just went. It went fast. It went definitely a lot going on here. I'll talk about that when we get started. But we're through the week. We're through getting ready for another weekend, hopefully with our families and our friends. And I need to let's go ahead and pause that music. I don't know if that adds a little ambiance for everybody, but if they're going to provide it, I'll use it for the lead-in for this. All right. I am going to start in just a second. So hopefully we have not sure how many people we're going to have today. I've got the cutaway security up in Discord and another monitor. I'll probably start doing that when I'm at home as well, and getting everything done. But it does look like we are at the top of the hour. So welcome everybody for the Cutaway Security ICS Infosec chat, March 25th, 2022. So I hope you had a great week. And, we have to remember, and I always work out on Fridays, especially for these things, so that, it's just a reminder to me, remember people that are deployed. There's a lot going on in the world. There's, I'm fortunate to be here in San Francisco, teaching and meeting a lot of people that are making a difference in their organizations. When I hung out with them last night, with a few of them last night, had a few drinks and chatted about some of the, their personal lives and some of the things that they're doing at work. Hopefully tonight or tomorrow, I'll be able to see some of my friends that live in the local area, because I know a few people here in San Francisco. And it's so it's going to be good. But we've got to remember that overseas in Europe, there's a lot of things going on. So for the United States standpoint, there are people deployed over there. So if you can help, if you have friends, family, be sure to drop them a short note, after this, during this, whenever you think about it, over the weekend. Try to give them a call. If they're deployed, build them a package and send them a package out there, because they've got a lot going on, and they'll probably need a lot of things. So go ahead and jump on there. Oh, look, we have Ron Brash that has joined us. So, hey, Ron, just a second. I'll introduce you, or I'll let you introduce yourself in just a second. But I want to tell everybody, thank you for joining us on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you are out there watching us, say hello to everybody. We see Daniel there. We see Wes there. Thank you for coming back. You guys come back just about every week. I see you, and I really appreciate you. Even when you're just in listen mode, that's great. But I do enjoy the comments, whether it's just talking about a quick note about what you are doing, or what your thoughts are on a certain topic. Just so everybody knows, I am setting up, or I am in a SANS class right now. I'm not teaching at this moment. I'm not forcing them to listen to me, but we are setting up. So you'll see people going behind me and going back and forth doing the AV. So, and Wes, speaking on ISA, I see that you're a partner at Security Gate and okay, so yeah, so Wes, I'll try to come back around to Security Gate a little bit more, but we got joined by Ron Brash, and Ron, your first time on here, and I really appreciate you jumping on and seeing what's going on. Why don't you go ahead and let people know who you are and what your background is?
Sure. I mean, I just jumped on because it was coffee break and I happened to see my Twitter feed and guess what? Don presenting. So hi, everybody. I'm Ron Brash. I'm VP of Technology or Technical Research and Integrations at Adolis Technology. I know it's a long-winded title and it sounds like I do sales. I don't. I'm actually an Uber geek. So what that means is I'm generally reverse engineering various file formats and doing all sorts of nasty things, as Don has seen in my ICS Summit presentation. So yeah, I just came to stop by and say hi and see what's going on.
Excellent, Ron. Yeah, I put up an agenda. It was recommended from a few people that we kind of have an agenda of things to talk about that we're going to discuss. So we'll kind of go over those. I do start with cutaway security activities just because I want to help people understand what's going on in a small consultancy who's trying to help organizations, and just to give a little bit of a day-to-day, some of the challenges that either I'm experiencing, personally within the company, which is myself at the moment, or with clients. So, and successes. So challenges and successes. I don't try to hide anything. And this week has been pretty easy because I've been in San Francisco, as I mentioned a couple times. We're doing the SANS class. It was actually a little challenging at the start. We're doing a new format. So it's SANS is doing a hybrid format, meaning that we have people in person, which is great. I get to see people and talk to people. And we're also doing an online. So I've got a Zoom monitor right in front of me, and I can see everybody. There's no cameras on, but they can comment really quickly. I like it because I actually can see my slides on that monitor too, so it helps me a little bit. But the challenge has been that kind of managing both and encouraging the people, making sure the experience. I know the experience for people in person is really good because I can see their faces, but the people online, sometimes there's a little bit of a delay. It can be longer depending on the internet, but also making sure I'm interacting with them. So I was a little slow this week, but we got them caught back up. So that's what we're doing. Another thing that we brought up, and kind of Wes was talking about, is I had to go, and I've got a client that needs to understand how to address some requests that being made by their partners. So I had to go out and actually buy a 62443 document so that I can help outline some of the information that they get back. So we're going to have to specifically take that document table, make a table of some of the requirements, and then help them get through a documentation review and outlining what they're doing and what they're trying to achieve. So that's what I was doing with Cutaway Security. Ron, what did you do this week?
What did I do this
that
week?
You can talk about.
Yeah, exactly. That's the real question. Had some follow-ups for doing some disclosures. That was a long-winded wait, and I'm still waiting after 2 years on some of them. So it's been quite interesting. Yes, it's been quite frustrating. I think a lot of people don't understand. I mean, some vendors play very well, and absolutely that's true. And then some are still pretending that this is the 90s. And then also in those same regards, having some struggling conversations with integrators and asset owners, because to them, understanding and knowing more vulnerabilities appears to be more work. So there's been a lot of challenges on managing some of those pieces and finding out, what can we do to help people versus the vendor quietly making this kind of slowly go away until after they've end of life the product. Actually, truthfully, a lot of products are actually end of life effectively when the moment they're released, and then only first party code gets maintained. So that was kind of like the nutshell of my frustrations this week, and trying to deal with the scope of the data that we were working on. You mentioned training people this week. So I had a few individuals we had one individual that just started. So I came back from a training meeting with West, and we got to be in person. But that's something I've struggled with teaching other people is when you're in the same office, it's great to watch people struggle a little bit because there's lessons to be learned. But when it's virtual, the lessons being learned is a lot longer. And so you're not there at those very crucial moments to help them when the wheels are spinning, right? When for example, if you're in an office and you had another individual next to you that was struggling, you would just say, you could see them, you can see the frustration going into the keyboard, the hands on the face, like, hey, you want to have a coffee or have a water, let's talk about it for a second. You don't get those chances now. So,
yeah, right. Yeah, when I was first starting into this industry, I was going through exactly what you're talking about, Ron. I was working with Matt Carpenter. I started. He'd pulled me over to his organization, and I didn't even I had no idea you could hack hardware, and and so he was kind of pulling me into that world. And the approach that we took, while they did get me all of the resources I needed to have a home lab for my own education and for research. But I did several trips that we call it going to the Carpenter Ranch, and where we sat in his office so he could look across the room at me and see my red face, and when I was struggling to just understand what flipping a bit did. I didn't realize we were turning on something. He was forcing me to turn on an LED, and I had never made the connection that the LED would be turning on a light or turning on a motor or something like that by just flipping a bit. And it took me a while. And if I hadn't gone to the Carpenter Ranch, I probably would have given up.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a steep learning curve, and then it's got also another kind of a mindset thing where logical meets physical as well, which kind of outsteps a lot of people's boundaries. There's high consequences to sometimes playing with hardware if you don't have JTAGs and stuff like that. So that's also another consideration. You get better at it if you've built systems and you have the ability to recover them. Like if you actually had a Beagle bone and you got to play with it and you had a JTAG, then you can learn those lessons in relative safety. But when someone gives you a relay or gives you something temporary or you buy it off of eBay, there's a lot of guesswork that goes into there, and you have to kind of play by the rules in terms of what you can explode literally and break out. So it's a challenge on those regards. So totally. But I think the hardest part is just when you think about the onboarding process from a traditional standpoint for resources. Before it was 6 months, I would assume that a person has a reasonable level of proficiency, assuming training, and I had there was enough supervision and the person had keen abilities. But now it's harder to say at 6 months whether or not a person will be proficient or not, because unless you're talking to them every day, your frequent touch points, which is on borderline micromanaging, or having what we do is we have having meetings open, and we have a kind of a chat, like a little mini breakout, my group, and that helps. But you can still see that there's a lot of longer pieces there that just kind of make that proficiency guesstimation, because employment is all about having KPIs and all those good things. But even for those individuals, if they had certain goals for themselves at 6 months, it's really hard to figure, even to guesstimate it. So that's a cool thing. And I see Daniel had a chat. Right. Yeah, not only JTAGs and UARTs. Well, yes, JTAGs are great for recovery. CLIs are one thing. And then if you also have CPLD programmers, that also is a very fun thing you can be playing with.
Right. And that's one of the things that we point out to people. I mean, we've hit on so many things since you got in here about that we talk about in class. Both of you and Daniel are kind of bringing up some of the attack surface that are on the field devices and the controllers. And when you're first getting into this field, you can study a certain part of this, a certain part of devices, and just realize, oh wow, I just covered one thing, and there's 5, 6, 10 more targets to the attack surface on this one device. Asking people to make doing the research, understanding it all. It's a breadth of knowledge and getting into the depth where we need certain things. But then also, how do we talk about fixing all of those things with the challenges that you had with not only going with the vendors, but then when things don't get fixed, helping people like the integrators understand how to reduce risk, reduce attack surface, and reduce risk as well.
Very multifaceted among
Wow.
multiple audiences. That's the fun part, but also the most frustrating part. I wish I could go to work and say, today between 9 and 5, I'm going to do this thing. No, no. If I could do that for one day of my week, that would be thrilling. But that's not been the case for many days running now.
Yes, and that's wow. And we're just talking at the at kind of the endpoint device. So, I want to come back to Wes asked a question at the beginning. So I want to kind of look at that again and come back around, because I don't want to, I want to make sure we cover his stuff. So I'm going to read it out loud again so that I can remember it. Speaking on ISA 62443, I see that you're a partner for SecurityGate. So, which is one of the things that I put out, on the company website. And I'm working with a couple different organizations on a regular basis. Usually 1099 work, but SecurityGate is one of the security vendors that I work with to, if a client of mine needs some organization around security assessments, then I would check to see if the SecurityGate product is helpful. So for like security maturity. And so he says he's not trying to call out make a vendor pitch, and neither am I. It's just something that I kind of liked and I think might be interesting. So he's saying he'd love to hear about the feedback on SecurityGate, and that's it. It's that if I have a need to help me organize the client's requests around either the maturity of their security program, how they're approaching things. Typically, when somebody's asking me like, "Hey, we have to align to NIST cybersecurity framework. We have to align to 62443, like I was talking about," then I might look to that to see if that can help us organize, because it's a portal where you can assign tasks. Hey, go gather this information, and then come back and put it in the portal. So we don't have to. It reduces a lot of meetings. It does a lot of project management in my mind. But I'll say right now, I haven't had an ask just yet. And I'm working on getting clients to do that. So Wes, hopefully that answers your question. Hello, Michael. Welcome to, glad you could join us. Please, if you have any questions for Ron and I, let us know. Ron, you're mainly doing security research. You're not really, are you assisting clients with addressing things, or are you assisting vendors with how to approach and reduce the attack surfaces and address vulnerabilities?
Yeah, good question. Nowadays, I mostly do product development as well as research. I don't work typically in so much now on the asset owner side after I left my previous role. So I kind of swapped sides and said, I don't want to do site visits for a while. I don't want to do assessments, and I don't want to help them justify their business case and mend the relationship fences. Being a psychological, just effectively being a counselor, I guess, in the OT and versus IT spaces, which is probably 70% of the job, I would say, half the time. So I wanted to go back to doing stuff that I love doing, and that's kind of, showing people you don't have to be, the bits and bytes master to go understand vulnerabilities in systems, because to be fair, most second, third tier vendors, and even a good portion of the first, there's such a low barrier to entry from the security just this cybersecurity engineering, just securing systems and making them better perspectives. There's so much that can be done, and so I like teaching that now. And then I save the hard projects for myself, of course, but I offload those pieces. So that's kind of what's been going on. It's very, very different. Yeah, very different. I don't get to play so much with 62443 now, because I think it actually is missing a lot of core features on how to actually develop secure products. So it only really talks about the outward facing pieces of it, and it's it's a framework, just like everything else is a framework. And you have other ones for automotive, and you have secure programming standards that some industries use over others, and there's various different pieces, but. So I end up working in this really different state of trying to correlate vulnerabilities and manage those things. And
I think some of the ISA certifications are around 62443 are for the program. Like, is your program are you managing it in a manner that will help to improve the security of the product, but not necessarily providing guidelines on what you should be doing at certain levels for hardware development and the software development in that. I mean, we don't want to restrict innovation, right? But at the same time, we do want people to make better choices. And
Yes.
when we're doing that, but that's 5 years out, right? I mean, the things that, like you said, as soon as a product's released, the things that you're looking at, they are already end of life, because they're building new circuit boards. They're looking for the new products and projects are looking for the newer technologies associated with CPUs and memory and memory components and so forth. And they're dedicating the people that would they're not going to build a new, in other words, they're not going to build a new circuit board for a device. They're already doing that for the next one, right? So
That's right.
that's a challenge.
And most vendors are integrators, and that's a really unfortunate truth. If you take a large aircraft manufacturer, certainly they have hangars and they stitch everything together, but they didn't build the avionics. They didn't build the heads-up displays. They didn't do A, B, and C. It's the same as your vehicle. We could go down the whole right to fix type stuff with tractors and talk about that too, because it's got a similar type of problem. These are integrators. And so when you think about when you go get your latest PLC or edge device or whatever, you need to remember that whoever's on that box is not the one who made it, and it's not the one who produced the majority of the software in there. So when they buy hardware, and Don, you probably saw this looking at radios and other devices, you'll notice that, like, hey, that looks like the same CPU that I see everywhere. Hey, it's on the same breakout daughter board. Hey, everything else looks the same except maybe the LEDs are in different locations. So what's up? Well, it's because it's based off of a reference design. And so those vendors that produce said unit are just using that board support package or the SDKs and inheriting all of the flaws from the BSPs and the SDKs, never looking for them. And then they tack on their first party code and out the door it goes. And the only maintenance ever happens on that first party code, unless there's a branded marketed vulnerability, like a Heartbleed of sorts or a Log4j type. Well, not those devices, but anything along those those lines of those kind of neighborhoods of flaws. So it's so intriguing, and yet there's so much we don't know, and probably it's better that we don't know sometimes. But it's fun. It's fun, but really hard.
And I think the getting the ISA 62443 certifications around your program is playing the long game. It's playing strategic. We operate really tactically, on actual devices and actual endpoints. But the solution for this, we're trying to improve the next 10, 15 years, and hopefully we get that. Wes, I did see your question about cloud security. I don't want to dive into we've got Ron here today, and while I'm sure he understands a lot about cloud, I kind of want to keep him keep the conversation going, kind of flowing where we're at. But I've been talking to a bunch of people this week at the SANS conference. Right next door is a cloud security class, and SANS has some excellent, really successful classes going on right now. And the one next door is talking about Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud. And they're learning a lot of excellent things about cloud implementation of the clouds and account management and all of those top concepts. So I would encourage you to check that out if that's something that interests you. Michael, talking about with things like Try Hack Me and Hack the Box, is there an online style lab setup to learn the ICS, OT, and the technologies and the protocols? First of all, I am teaching the SANS class, and I enjoy it, and I think it's successful. Justin and all of the instructors give back to this class a lot. We kind of Justin develops it and maintains it through the controlthings.io platform, and he also teaches he has also developed the assessing and exploiting control systems class. And so if you go out to controlthings.io, you can see that there are plenty of other things. A lot of universities are putting out programs right now Obviously, SANS has, we have the 612, which is implementing and deploying things. I'm trying to write a pen test class as well. But it can be expensive. It's really expensive to develop and maintain these types of labs. I would look to some of the security conferences where the ICS Village is going, anywhere that Grim is taking their vehicle simulators and other labs as well. Those are excellent places to go. So they're typically at Wild West Hacking Fest. That now that we're going live. So I would check that out, Michael. Hopefully that helps. Daniel, did you say that 62443 does not help with building a secure product? Is that what you said, Ron?
So let me. Yes, I said that, but it's a nuanced thing, like everything in engineering. So if you look at most vulnerabilities in devices, they're usually generated from a lack of engineering. So cybersecurity is the result of proper engineering, or no security is the result of no improper or incomplete engineering. So when you look at the 62443 documents, they're not properly fleshed out to tell you if this type of device is in these controls, what do you need to do? So for example, do you fail open? There's no requirement for that in 62443. There's nothing saying, if you have firmware and you're receiving images, do you have a failover image in there that's on a ROM? There's nothing there for that. Or if those ones fail, okay, well, what happens when your update goes? Does it roll back? Those type of design patterns are not included in 62443. Or how do you sanitize certain things? So it'll say, like, do you have controls for authentication and access? Of course, everyone's going to say yes. If you look at the SLTs, like the target security levels, and then you could argue on the achieved being quite different, but then you'd have to say, okay, well, what's the level of sophistication and all those things? The sub controls there are very high level, almost very, let's call it NIST-y, if I can make my own adjective, in describing the certain pieces of what it is that you needed to do. So that's why I said that they don't really help you build a really resilient product in terms of that. It's again, even if you go to get certified for having a device that would be compliant under SL1 or 2, very few things are going to be 3 and 4s, to be fair, at least in certification. The process of understanding what it is that's being tested isn't in public knowledge. It's not covered in the 62443 documents. It's hinted to. There's high level constructs, but those patterns and those foundational building blocks are not there. And even if they were there, those vendors aren't buying product that already has those foundations already there. They'd have to add them in. And so that's why so far in our current and slightly short-term foreseeable future, which is probably 1 to 5 years, you won't see it really helping on that. But you will see 62443 helping with risk analysis frameworks. You'll see it with building a security program. You will see it with making sure that your networks and your systems have these properties and your zones and conduits. It has done a lot in those regards in standardizing and formalizing what good looks like. But when it comes to what is in a really good product, that's a very tricky thing. And then even then, let's say, for example, you certified an HMI under 62443 on that vendor, and they've done everything on it, but it's just that application. But then you're on a Windows box, and then all of that stuff kind of gets left out in that piece. But again, no framework's going to ever save you. And so you still need to apply common sense and proper engineering principles.
Yeah. So hopefully, Daniel, I'm not dealing at that level, at that level anymore. It's more I'm helping clients with their own security programs. So, from a development standpoint, I haven't had an ask of too many vendors. Certainly, I know they're listening to me and they watch me to see what I'm putting out there. But I'm not doing a lot of deep dive research into anything anymore. If I am doing something with the product, it's more of an implementation to demonstrate, hey, enable the security features that they've provided you. Because most of the flaws that I found, the attack surface, they've enabled it themselves, and they haven't reduced it using the mechanism that the vendors are actually giving them to do it. So that's my experience.
Yeah, I mean, even right then on that note, right? So I know there's a 62443 requirement that says, like, reduce the surface and make sure those minimum things are achieved, and the vendors aren't doing so. And then the integrator doesn't do so because they don't seem to care, or they're just their
Well,
statement of
right.
work says get this done, and then outwards you go. So it's
Well, the vendors, yeah, the vendors are still doing. I mean, and I do think they're moving forward with this, and and it takes a security program within development to do this. The business world did this exact same thing 15 years ago, but then they slowly learned that we can't trust administrators to understand their products deeply that they're deploying, that they're just going to deploy them in insecure states. So we have to start them secure. We need to give them all of the features that are developed into it, but if they want them, turn them on, right? We should be enabling the secure versions of whatever is a part of the services on that device, and force them to enable the things that they need to add because of requirements. So if they need a command line interface that that's listening on a certain service port, then force them to turn it on. They've made the risk decision at that point. If you have it on and say, hey, if it's too risky, turn it off, they're not going to listen because they don't have time to do all of that. They will have time if it's not working the way they want to. They'll do the research and they're like, oh, I just need to enable this. Okay. All right. I'll accept the risk. So, and Daniel, I see your comment, but we're kind of coming up at the end. So I don't want to go too far down a path. Wes, I did see your comment about the type of processors and stuff like that. If you jump in the Cutaway Security Forum, I'm sure that we can answer some of that questions as well as around our experience. Ron, what are you going to do next week? Let's kind of like get a topic that we can do for the next minute or so.
Oh, good. Well, I just wrapped up the Hack the Port, so I got that deck done and presented. So that was one thing I got done this week. But for next week, I got to prepare for S4 as a backup speaker, so I need to finish that deck up.
Okay.
And
nice.
I also, I've got a few things. A lot of incoming file formats that are actually novel. So I have a suspicion I'll be reverse engineering much of those and then turning that into a programmatic framework for the rest of the team, so we never have to touch it again. That's kind of in a nutshell what I'll be working on. And then Excellent. I also wanted to play around with some of the more water industry focused things these days, just because unfortunately they're usually the ones with some of the slimmest budgets out there, and they usually the products they get are the first ones that they get that fit their price margins, and that's a whole challenging conversation altogether. So I'm going to play around a bit with that. I don't know how far I'll get to it, just because spare time is not ubiquitous these days.
Yes,
and that's probably that'll be about it for me. So what about you, Don? What are you gonna get
up to? Well, I'll be finishing up a report, and actually starting on a new assessment, doing some architecture review for a front end processor for another organization, and thinking about what our approach is going to be for our following pen test. So, Ron, where can people find you out there?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. So it'll be Ron Brash. There's only a few of me out there with such a rare last name. And then if you want to find me on Twitter, it's Ron_Brash. So quite simple as well. So you can easily reach out to me in any one of those places and run into me at S4 if you're there, or any other conference I'm at. I'd be thrilled to shake a virtual hand or bump fists or pound an elbow and have a tasty beverage of your choice and talk all things geek.
Yes, sir. Have safe travels. I really wish I was going, but because of the whole move around, I didn't. I didn't get a chance to set up travel and be able to afford the conference. So maybe next year we'll be able to get out there and meet everybody. But have a safe trip, Ron. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody on LinkedIn. Wes, Michael, Daniel. I really appreciate all of you dropping in each week and asking questions and giving your comments. It really gives back to this, and I thank all of you. So have a great weekend and a great week next week. We'll see you on Cutaway Discord or on Twitter, and enjoy yourselves. Thank you for joining. Thanks again, Ron.
Thank you. Take care.